For the industry, how much is all this costing, Mike Thompson?
Well, so there's no doubt that all of this just means additional cost. So I've talked about the cost for GSK and AstraZeneca. Pfizer on record saying that they've posted $100 million into their quarterly accounts. I think we are going to see additional costs from everywhere. I mean, just again to give you a different example, I was talking yesterday to someone from the textiles unions who supply the cleaning of lab coats. Right, so 39% of people involved in that industry are from EU. They believe inevitably, therefore, cost of cleaning lab coats is going to go up. And I think we're going to see that sort of all across the piece, is from small things like lab coats to really big things, to the fact that we may have to duplicate the regulatory processes we go through in an event of a no deal. We are going to see additional costs.
Have you done anything in terms of adding all that up to what the total cost might be, either of stockpiling or overall the costs of a no deal?
So we haven't done that, A, because I think that's very difficult, and to be honest, at this moment, our sole focus is actually on ensuring that we can get medicines to patients. We'll deal with the cost later. And
what happens to the costs? Will they be borne by the consumers or through lower profit margins?
Well, I think in the short run it'll be borne by the industry, because when we agree a price with the NHS, that's the price that we agree, and it only goes downwards during the course of the life of a medicine. So in the short run, of course, these things will be borne by the industry, but in the long run, industries cannot stay profitable and find investors to invest in them if their profits are going backwards. So in the long run, of course, it has to be borne. This is one of the benefits that we've had out of working in a regional environment, is we've been able to take those efficiencies and pass them on.
Thank you. Albert.
Yeah, sure. You've answered to the Chair about the cost, and obviously that impacts on competitiveness and investment in the future, and that's a concern about. With the withdrawal agreements, do you see anything in it that gives you greater certainty for the transition period? I mean, you said about the unknowns. We've had this document published now. You've had opportunity to analyse it. Does it give you any greater certainty?
Well, I think obviously what the withdrawal agreement gives us is a transition period.
Yeah.
And therefore, in terms of supply of medicines to patients, it would be hugely significant. And so our number one priority is a transition period. We need to recognise that when we go into the transition period, the MHRA will only have observer status in the EMA. And that obviously is a really significant step back for us. Also in our science programmes, we have the ability to pay to participate, but not to design the science programmes. And I think if you've got world-leading scientists in our universities, which we do, they are not going to stick around if all they can do is essentially be a trial site. They are clearly want to be driving the thinking forward. They want to design the programmes of the future. So that also is a major challenge for us.
Mr Thompson said a little earlier that he's a lot more confident than he was when he appeared before us a year ago, and he told us that we'd managed to solve many of the problems that we thought existed. So do you think the problems that the industry's faced were overstated? Do you think people have sort of been crying wolf a little about the challenges of leaving the EU?
No, I don't. And whilst I agree with Mike that progress has been made, particularly the planning in the event of hard Brexit, the general board sentiment in American companies toward the UK is growing more negative rather than positive as a consequence of the uncertainty that surrounds us. So, do we know what's going to happen next year and beyond?
So do you disagree with Mr Thompson about feeling more confident than you would have done a year ago?
I think that the board sentiment is not better now than it was a year ago, and that's the critical thing in determining the place of the UK as a life sciences.
Mr Sahata, are you more confident today than you would have been 12 months ago?
I think we're confident on our planning and supply issues. I think the boardroom sentiment, Brexit's not helping, but it's not just Brexit, it's the business environment. But do you get a sense
that it's not the challenge and the massive problem that people painted it as, a year ago?
Well, I can only sort of detail the planning we're having to do to ensure supply. It's a workload that ideally we would not want, or costs that we would not want either. But with the Industry Association, I think overall we're very well prepared and controlling everything we can control. But to Mark's point, the boardroom sentiment in a number of companies, I guess, is looking at Brexit, but it's also looking at the business environment generally and kind of saying, you know, it's not as healthy as it used to be. And I think that's having a
Okay.
big factor.
Can I move on to the transition period?
Can I just make a
Sure,
quick
sure.
comment just
Yeah,
just
sure.
to say I'm on record as saying as I think this is the biggest logistical challenge that we've ever faced. So I don't want it to be characterised that somehow I'm saying that this is not a big deal or this is a major challenge. I think what I'm saying, since I appeared a year ago, I believe that we've made very good progress and we're working well with government. But, you know, this is something where never before have we tried to secure the supply line of sort of over 12,000 individual medicines to reach the patients in the UK. And absolutely there will be unknown consequences where things don't go right, and those are the things which are keeping us, you know, sort of awake at night in terms of what we need to do. What I am saying, though, is I'm very confident that people are working on good plans to try and address these. There is a lot more that still needs to be done.